Good morning. I'm Stephanie Benvenuto, Chair of the San Diego Housing Commission Board of Commissioners. It is March 4th, 2022, and I'm calling to order the special meeting of the board. The process we're using for today's meeting is authorized by Government Codes 54953E, which was added by Assembly Bill 361. This allows the Housing Commission to use teleconferencing and provide the public with an opportunity to address the board through a call-in or internet-based option during a proclaimed state of emergency. The San Diego City Council on February 8th, 2022 declared that a state of emergency continues to directly impact the ability of members to meet safely in person. The council also declared that this applies to all boards, commissions, and committees of the city of San Diego. This meeting is occurring by video conference with all board members, our deputy CEO, housing commission staff, and general counsel, and our CEO participating via video. For the record, I will ask each board member to indicate their presence as I say their name. Vice Chair Ryan Klumpner.
Here.
Commissioner Johanna Hester.
Here.
Commissioner Keeley Hubbard.
Here.
Commissioner Mitch Mitchell, who I know is absent, and Commissioner Melinda Vasquez. Okay, hopefully she'll join us shortly. No members of the public are in attendance. However, members of the public may watch the video conference and hear the audio of today's meeting, which is being streamed live online. The audio for today's meeting include the agenda for today's meeting included a link to the website for the San Diego Housing Commission Board of Commissioners, where the public can access the live streaming for today's meeting. The public has been provided with an alternative opportunity to provide comments to the board through an online comment form and a toll-free phone number. A link to the online comment form was included on the agenda for today's meeting, which was posted on the San Diego Housing Commission's website, www.sdhc.org, on Thursday, February 24th. A revised agenda was posted on the website on Monday, February 28th to revise dollar amounts in the staff recommendation actions in item 102 on today's agenda. The agenda and the public comment form explain that comments about items on the agenda will be read into the record if they were submitted by 4 p.m. yesterday, Thursday, March 3rd. Non-agenda public comments submitted by 8 o'clock this morning will be read into the record. In addition, members of the public who wish to speak on an item may call the toll-free phone number that is included on the agenda. Members of the public should monitor the meeting through the live video streaming that's available on the Housing Commission's website, www.sdhc.org. And again, today's agenda includes a link to the website for this board where the public can access the live streaming for today's meeting. Members of the public should call the toll-free phone number only when the item they wish to comment on is introduced. If a caller begins to comment on an item that's different from the item that we're currently considering, we're going to ask them to hang up and call back into the meeting at the correct time. Members of the public will have 3 minutes each to provide their comments. However, if there's a large number of callers that wish to speak on a single agenda item, comments may be limited to 1 minute each. Non-agenda public comments. The phone line is now open to provide non-agenda public comments. Please call 833-610-2513 to be placed in the queue to provide non-agenda public comments. We'll go ahead and give this a 90-second period. This is the time when members of the public may provide comments to the Housing Commission Board about topics that are not on today's agenda, but involve a subject within the Housing Commission's area of responsibility. The Housing Commission can't take action on non-agenda public comments. The number again is 833-610-2513. There was one written non-agenda public comment for today's meeting, which came from Jeremy Pyroth, and he wrote, "How is San Diego Municipal Code 98.0730 being enforced? Something needs to be in place for tenants to block an illegal eviction notice from a law firm that has had their license suspended numerous times that the landlord knows will perform illegal activities." I will now ask our Vice President of Communications, Scott Marshall, if we have any callers for non-agenda public comments.
We have about 30 seconds left on the clock, but no callers yet.
Thank you.
That concludes the time, and there are no callers.
Thank you. Now we are going to move into commissioner comments. Commissioners, floor is yours. Anybody want to make any comments? And if you don't, I will go ahead and jump in. Going once, twice. All right, while you figure out how to unmute. I just wanted to take this moment to recognize our CEO, Rick Gentry, and his recent announcement that he'll be moving on from the commission. I know that for some, that was probably quite a surprise, but I wanted to assure everybody that the conversation about, the commission's future is one that we're all very invested in. And to that point, I want to make sure that I'm highlighting how appreciative I know I am of Rick's work in being really diligent in fostering a team of exceptionally talented people. Our leadership team is very well equipped to take on the legacy that Rick leaves behind and make sure that they're taking care of our vulnerable populations. And so I just wanted to just to highlight the work that Rick's done. He's been here for how many mayoral administrations and a number of different iterations of what the commission is charged with doing. And he's been game to tackle every issue that the city has thrown at him. And I think we can all appreciate that where the commission is in the center of so many complexities, right? The Housing Commission is dealing with generational trauma, with poverty, with the real estate market and how land value is impacting people's ability to get homes. It's dealing with the influx of, new residents while we try to find housing for our current. It's this space where so many of the most complex problems in the world come to manifest themselves in the fact of just trying to get the most vulnerable populations housed. And so I want to give Rick a boatload of credit for that. And I wanted to thank you and wish you well and say that I have learned quite a bit from you and I'm very appreciative of that. So fellow commissioners, anything else you'd like to say?
Madam Chair.
Go for it.
I too want to recognize, I've been probably, both Ryan and I are the newest, apart from Mitch and Commissioner Melinda Vasquez coming in. And so I guess we're not new anymore, Ryan. We're probably the more senior commissioners. But let me tell you, in that short period of time, Rick has put upon me a lot of knowledge that I am going to be forever grateful for. And Rick, I felt your leadership was really compelling and valued. And, I'm sorry to see us part.
Thank you.
I would just add, I think that the chair eloquently said everything, or spoke for all the commissioners, even the ones that aren't with us at the moment, I'm sure. And one thing about this agency and being a commissioner, it's one thing to understand sort of what the agency does, like from a distance. It's another thing when you get into it up close. And when I sort of think back on how much I've learned from you, Rick, and the volume and scope of things that you've had to explain to us and bring us up to speed, it is vast. And it sometimes like sneaks up on us a little bit because it's a bit at a time. And as Commissioner Hester just pointed out, I've lost track of how many years I've been here, but it feels like one. I'm sure apparently it's been more than 3 now. So, yeah, I mean, I appreciate everything that you've taught us all, and the fantastic advocacy that you've done on behalf of your staff and your employees, and everybody that I want all the staff to know everybody who presents in any of these commission hearings and get the questions that you are all a reflection of, I think, Rick's greatest legacy on this agency. And so we all deeply appreciate that. And I said that the chair couldn't say it better than me. I took a swing at it, but I think she still got it. Thank you.
And I wanted to also say, I met you, Rick, I think a year or 2 before I was on the board. I've known you now for about 8 or 9 years, and you've not only been a great leader to the commission and to the housing authority, nationwide. I think that everyone is saying your praises as I went through 2 conferences throughout the country. nothing but good things to say about you and your work. And but you've also been a mentor, sort of like a mentor to me as well. So, it's been an honor to have been on the board while you've been CEO. You will truly be missed. That's for sure. And the leadership you've provided will leaves with such confidence. Leaves us with confidence that the Housing Commission will still be in good hands, no matter who comes in. You've set it up that way. So I truly hats off to you. And it's too bad it couldn't be in person, but you're truly going to be missed.
Thank you, Keely.
Thank you. That brings us to our report from our CEO.
Well, the first is to say thank you for all those kind comments, and Keely, especially to you. I mean, you've been a great representative of the people we serve. And I think you and Maggie together, who went off the board, 4, 5, 6 months ago, were great reps for the people we serve. And thank you for your service too in keeping us honest with what our mission is supposed to be. And Keely, I thank you for that. And for the other positive comments, I thank you. When I was, and it's 4 mayors I worked under, if you count the brief tenure by Mr. Fellner, Stephanie. But I was hired 14 years ago to take what was an underperforming, fairly ordinary organization. It was never bad, but it was never did what it should do. And we've turned it into what is one of the best, if not the best in the nation. I think there's no one in the nation that I would say outperforms us. Not very few that are in our league that have addressed the number of issues we've addressed. We've got the best senior staff in the nation. I don't know, I hired everybody with Jeff. He survived me, and for 14 years, I promoted him twice. So we've got the best senior staff in the nation. We got the best staff in the nation. You look at us all the way down into the ranks, and we've been able to do what we've done, I think, Johanna, while respecting the workers here too. And I say that coming from a long line of blue collar workers myself, that we take care of your people. They take care of the business, and the people we're supposed to serve get served very well. And I'm extremely proud and pleased of what we've done the last 14 years. And I think, and you take this for what it's worth, with the right kind of policy leadership from the 2 boards, it can stay exactly as good, if not better than it is now going forward. But these organizations can change on a dime too, if there's not careful husbandry and attentive management going forward. So thank you for all that. I really appreciate it. I'm going to miss you. I'm going to miss this agency. But I'm not planning to leave San Diego. So I'll see many of you around here going forward. That said, Madam Chair, I've got 3 ordinary reports for you. One program update, one is a ribbon cutting, and one is a groundbreaking, all that have occurred since the last board meeting a month ago. The program update, Madam Chair and board members, is the COVID-19 Housing Stability Assistance Program. And I will say that in less than a year, our COVID-19 Housing Stability Assistance Program has dispersed more than $178 million to help pay rent and utilities for more than 16,000 households with low income. We have provided these funds to struggling households more quickly than most any other jurisdiction across the country. We also know, though, that there's a need for additional help, and we have continued to work with Mayor Todd Gloria's office to obtain additional funding to be able to support more families through this program. On Tuesday of this week, the City Council approved this board's recommendation to authorize the expenditure of an additional $8.3 million for this program. You will recall these are federal funds reallocated to San Diego from other jurisdictions across the country because of how well we have done getting the money to the people who need it. All of the funding available for this program all the funds, however, for this program are obligated, including the $8.3 million approved just this week. These obligations include households with low income whose applications are pending review, confirmation and verification of the eligibility, and documentation. The total obligations currently exceed, however, the funding for the program. The Housing Commission staff met in January with state lawmakers regarding the need for additional funding for this program. And consequently, a new state law was enacted in early February, which enables the state to provide cash flow loans that would support this program going forward and similar programs statewide. We are currently working, staff is, with the mayor's office, the Housing Commission's General Counsel, and the state's Department of Housing and Community Development to obtain details about this new state funding option. We anticipate that with these state cash flow loans, our program would be able to provide assistance to additional qualifying households that submit their applications no later than March 31 of this year. And we are reasonably optimistic we can honor all of those that come in with this funding. I will point out that although these are loans, the state cash flow loan program, however, would be paid for by additional federal funding that may be awarded for this program. However, if the federal government does not award sufficient additional funding to repay the loan, the state would forgive the balance of the cash flow loan to us. So all this funding is in the form of loans, it would not form any obligation for this organization, would not be covered elsewhere. Staff will continue providing updates to you as we learn more going forward. I want to once again thank this board for your support since its inception, and particularly two of you who have gone above and beyond in helping us do outreach for the program. That is Commissioners Mitchell and Commissioner Hester and Johanna, especially to you. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge our outstanding Housing Commission staff across multiple departments for their work on this program, with special recognition for Zana Valladolid and the Rental Assistance Division. Not many agencies in this country could gin up a brand new program, hire 100 staff, and spend pushing $200 million in less than a year. And if you see the struggles that most parts of the country have had implementing this, that we've had no problem at all with, that again testifies to the strength of the staff here, the strength of this organization, and the leadership we have within it. And so, Zana, all the senior staff, Jeff, staff down the line, thank you for making this one work. We helped a lot of people, did the right thing, and it looked pretty good too. Second item, Madam Chair, is a real biggie. That is the grand opening of the St. Theresa of Calcutta Villa on February the 10th. And last month, St. Theresa of Calcutta Villa development in East Philly celebrated its grand opening. I joined California State Treasurer Fiona Ma, San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria, County Supervisor Nathan Fletcher, Deacon Jim Vargas from Father Joe's Villages, and Cherry Hoffman from Chelsea Investment Corporation. We were all speakers at the grand opening. Council President Sean Yellow Rivera and Council Member Joe LaCava also attended. The Housing Commission supported this development through our Homelessness Action Plan, Housing First San Diego, which you will hear more about in a report during the workshop later this morning. The St. Theresa project, the development is providing additional 403 units of affordable rental housing. And of these 403 units, 270 are set aside for households that have experienced homelessness. The Housing Commission awarded 270 rental housing vouchers to help residents of these units pay their rent. In addition, this board approved a loan of $11.5 million to support this development, which includes local and federal funds that we administer. $9 million from the City of San Diego Affordable Housing Fund, and the remaining $2.5 million from the Home Program funds from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The Housing Commission also authorized the issuance of approximately $150 million in multifamily housing revenue bonds for this development. So we were on every side of this one in a support and following capacity. I will point out that this property combined the outstanding work of our real estate, rental assistance, and homelessness housing innovation divisions, as Emily, Azuzena, and Lisa, and their staff to create these new homes. And if you've not visited that property, you really should contact Deacon Vargas. This is a game changer, I think, and is the largest property, I believe, that we've ever invested in affordable housing here in San Diego. Finally, Madam Chair, a groundbreaking that occurred on Valentine's Day, and that is a groundbreaking for the new construction of 124 affordable apartments at a new property called Shoreline. The Shoreline groundbreaking included California Lieutenant Governor Eleni Kounalakis, Mayor Todd Gloria, County Supervisor Nathan Fletcher, who also chairs the Metropolitan Transit System Board, City Council Member Raul Campillo, Housing Commission Executive VP of Real Estate Emily Jacobs, and Jim Silverwood from Affirmed Housing, who's the developer for this project. This property will provide affordable rental housing on property the Metropolitan Transit System currently owns near the Grantville Trolley Station. The Housing Commission awarded some 25 rental housing vouchers to this transit-oriented development to help pay rent for San Diegans with incomes up to 30% of San Diego's area median. The Housing Commission also authorized the issuance of more than $31 million in tax-exempt multifamily housing revenue bonds and some $27 million in taxable bonds to support this development. This particular property represents the best of what we've done traditionally in our real estate side. To Emily, you, Colin, the rest of your folks, I thank you so much for your good work here. This is a good example of what we're going to be able to do going forward. And Madam Chair, that concludes my report. And again, thank you to you and the other board members for your very kind comments about me. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for that report, commissioners. And to the staff who know this, it's a great reminder to see everything come full circle. I remember the Theresa of Calcutta before this board when we were in person, and Shoreline when it came before us, but to think about the 30% AMI populations that will serve, I grapple with that, with those families, because there are no options outside of the properties that we administer for folks who are 30% AMI. You're not going to find that just on Zillow. So it's really critical that we continue to address the supply challenges across the city. Moving on, we will go into our minutes. I don't know why I scrolled. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for the special meeting of February 4th, 2022. The phone line is now open for public comments about those minutes. You can call 833-610-2513 to be placed in the queue. We had no written public comments submitted regarding the minutes, but again, that number to call is 833-610-2513. Scott, do we have any callers?
We don't have any callers yet. We have about 1 minute and 10 seconds left.
You bet.
That concludes the time, and we do not have any callers regarding the minutes.
Thank you. I feel like we should take those little chunks to meditate or something together. It's nice and peaceful. Do any commissioners wish to make any changes to the minutes, or is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
All right. Oh, Commissioner Hester, you beat him. Vice Chair, you can be the second. We've got a motion by Commissioner Hester and a second by Vice Chair Klempner to approve the meetings from the special meeting to approve the minutes from the special meeting of February 4th, 2022. For the record, I will ask each commissioner to say their vote on the motion when I state their name. Vice Chair Klempner.
Aye.
Commissioner Hester.
Aye.
Commissioner Hubbard.
Aye.
And Commissioner Vasquez. Still no Commissioner Vasquez. Okay, motion carries unanimously with all 4 commissioners present voting in favor. Next up, we'll go to the consent agenda. I'd like to propose that items 100 and 101 be placed on the consent agenda. Item 100 is the procurement of property insurance coverage, and item 101 is the amendment to the agreement with Insight Public Sector for Microsoft Enterprise Licensing. The phone line is now open for public comments about both items, 100 and 101. Please call 833-610-2513 to be placed in the queue. And while that's up, I will let you know that there was no written public comments submitted regarding these items. But if you'd like to call in, that number is 833-610-2513.
That concludes the time, and we do not have any callers for items 100 or 101. Madam Chair, you're muted.
Thank you, Scott. That concludes the public comment period for items 101 and 100. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Commissioner Hubbard
Second.
and seconded by Commissioner Hester. For the record, I will ask each commissioner to say their vote on the motion when I say your name. Vice Chair Klempner.
Aye.
Commissioner Hester.
Aye.
Commissioner Hubbard.
Aye.
And I'll add my vote in favor. Motion carries unanimously. We're now going to proceed with the remaining items on our agenda today. The PowerPoint presentations were emailed to commissioners yesterday, March 3rd, and are also on the website. Item 102 is the approval of a contract between the Housing Commission and Catholic Charities to operate the City of San Diego Women's Interim Housing Program. The phone line is now open for public comments about 102. Item 102, you can call 833-610-2513 to be placed in the queue. We had no written public comments submitted regarding this item, but again, the number to call is 833-610-2513, and we'll take those public comments after the staff presentation, which will come from our Executive Vice President of Strategic Initiatives, Lisa Jones, and Director of Housing First Administration, Casey Snell. Whenever you're ready.
Good morning, commissioners. You covered who we are and what we're presenting on, so I'm going to go to next slide, please. Thank you so much. All right. On April 19th, 2021, Mayor Todd Gloria announced a proposed investment of more than $10 million in American Rescue Plan Act ARPA funds to create additional crisis response resources and investments in shelter and longer-term housing options to address unsheltered homelessness. The proposed program supports the Community Action Plan on Homelessness for the City of San Diego, which identifies shelter interventions as critical entry points to the city's crisis response system and necessary to facilitate permanent and longer-term housing options. The Housing Commission will administer the Women's Shelter Program to the Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, between the city and the Housing Commission for the provision of homeless shelters and services programs. Next slide, please. Through this programs, Catholic Charities will provide safe, low-barrier shelter for women who are 18 or older experiencing unsheltered homelessness, with a specific emphasis on those with serious medical conditions, women released from the hospital who do not need or qualify for recuperative care, but are in need of a safe indoor place to recover, and women with other higher need conditions. The program will operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with a maximum capacity of 40 beds. Next slide. The program will provide wraparound services and a diverse portfolio of supportive services, utilizing practices aligned with harm reduction and trauma-informed principles, including but not limited to housing-focused case management that aims to resolve program clients' homelessness as quickly as possible, care coordination and assistance with applying for public benefits, peer support services, substance use and medication-assisted treatment, mental health services, and assistance in locating safe and affordable permanent or other long-term housing, including determining housing interventions and opportunities outside of the Coordinated Entry System, or CES. Next slide. Basic shelter services will include, but are not limited to, appropriate 24-hour residential services and staffing, a maximum of 40 beds and other residential furnishings, a minimum of 2 meals per day in compliance with all applicable health and safety regulations, showers, wash stations, restrooms, laundry facilities, and belonging storage for program clients. Routine operating and client supplies, including but not limited to hygiene products, basic first aid supplies and cleaning supplies, telephone access and message services, regularly laundered linens, and mail services. Next slide.
Catholic Charities has been providing services in San Diego for over 100 years. Currently, Catholic Charities administers more than 20 programs funded by $15 million in federal, state, local, and private grants and donations. Catholic Charities operates several programs for people experiencing homelessness in San Diego and Imperial counties, such as La Posada, a 100-bed shelter in Carlsbad, which provides 24/7 emergency shelter for men experiencing homelessness and those employed as farm workers. Our Lady of Guadalupe in Calexico has 50 beds for men experiencing homelessness. House of Hope in El Centro, which is a shelter for women and children, includes 20 beds and 4 cribs. And Rachel's Night Shelter, a 35-bed shelter serving women in San Diego. Next slide, please. The table on this slide shows the operating costs for the initial contract term from April 13th through June 30th, 2022, which is $339,701. This includes shelter operations, startup costs, and Housing Commission administrative costs. Funding for the Women's Interim Shelter Program will be provided through the allocation of American Rescue Plan Act City General Funds that were approved for the city's fiscal year 2022 budgeting process. Future contract terms will be exercised contingent on funding being made available for this purpose through the city's annual budgeting process. Next slide, please. Catholic Charities was identified as the operator for this program through a competitive request for qualifications, or RFQ process. On July 15th, 2021, the Housing Commission issued an RFQ seeking to increase the capacity of the existing shelter system within the city of San Diego. In particular, this RFQ was to expand the ability to serve special populations, such as those with substance use disorder, veterans, single women, those in need of respite care, or other subpopulations, potentially in smaller scale, that support the unique needs of these populations. Respondents were able to propose sites for consideration, which provided the opportunity to identify potential existing resources in the system. The RFQ was posted and made available for download on the Planet Bids website through both the Housing Commission and the City of San Diego's portals. On August 12th, 2021, the RFQ closed. Submissions were received from 4 respondents: Catholic Charities, Interfaith Community Services, San Diego Youth Services, and Veterans Village of San Diego. Next slide, please. Of the respondents deemed qualified, Catholic Charities provided a proposed site location and a specific underserved population that they could serve. This program was prioritized for implementation based on several factors, including Catholic Charities' ability to secure and provide an available site location, their ability to leverage their own funds to support tenant improvements to the identified site, the need for more shelter beds for specific populations such as single women, and the need for shelter beds that can support people with higher level care needs. Next slide, please. The Housing Commission requires its contractors to take various COVID-19 precautions and to be in compliance with all local, state, and federal public health orders. Precautions are in alignment with guidance from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Such as preventing and managing the spread of infectious disease for people experiencing homelessness, preventing and managing the spread of infectious disease within encampments, and then the interim guidance for homeless service providers to plan and respond to COVID-19. Budgets include personal protective equipment for both clients and staff, and shelters will maintain screening will implement screening and isolation procedures, which include daily health screenings and placement in designated shelter isolation space for residents who test positive. And the Housing Commission coordinates with the County of San Diego for regular COVID-19 testing and vaccination opportunities at city shelter sites. Next slide, please. Staff recommend that the Housing Commission Board take the actions detailed in the staff report and shown on the next 2 slides. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. That concludes our presentation. We are available to answer any questions. Also available and with us today is Vino Paginor. He is the CEO of Catholic Charities, so he's available for questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott, do we have any public comments?
No, there are no callers for this item.
Thank you. Okay, commissioners, questions, comments? Okay, I'll jump in. I actually had a couple of questions on this one. Really excited to see this come forward. I was impressed by this sort of comprehensive way that the provider is thinking about taking care of this population. But what came to mind was that we've got some serious inflation coming forward. So Lisa, would you mind talking to me about how, or at least walking us through how we're budgeting for that or thinking about those rising costs, especially with like the toiletries and the paper goods and all that, which can certainly add up?
Yes, absolutely. They certainly can, particularly when you're thinking about sort of transportation delays in securing goods. So for instance, beds, bedding, things like that can take quite some time, and they are escalating. You'll notice in the authorization request that there is a request for a 20% opportunity to increase initial contract costs by 20% with the CEO's approval, contingent on funding being made available for that purpose. The conversations, we meet with City of San Diego once a week around our budgeting and contracts. So that gives us some flexibility when things like that happen. But we also are trying to stay ahead of this and work very closely with our procurement department, who does a lot of the work in researching and analyzing the costs of goods and supplies. And thank Deborah Fischel-Falk and her team for that, because we put a lot of asks on them.
I bet. Yeah, I was just thinking, is there some sort of like an industry-wide sort of index that you guys are able to bank on, or when you're thinking long term? But that makes sense that Deborah's team would be able to handle that. Okay, thank you. And then another question with regard to the location, which is wonderful that there is a site, that this is a site-specific proposal, but the tenant improvements, could you walk us through what the process and timeline is for those to happen? What the major improvements are expected to be, and then how we're coordinating with them to make sure that everything is up to snuff.
So I will have Vino walk through the improvements, but part of what we do when we implement any new shelter is the senior programs analysts, who are the shelter contractors, are working with the shelter as the site is set up. We work with the shelter, we work with the City of San Diego, and we work with the fire marshal. Also, in certain circumstances, depending on the tenant improvements that are done, we might also have City of San Diego environmental services come in and do air quality checks, things of that nature, to make sure that all the tenant improvements that are done that might be related to something like that have achieved their goals. So we have support from the City of San Diego with their different departments to come in and make sure that the site's set up, and then we work very closely with the provider. But I want to pass it over to Vino so he can kind of explain the process that they're going through with the tenant improvements, since they are actually paying for that themselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa, and good morning, commissioners and chair. To address the question on the tenant improvements, we are working very collaboratively and closely with the Salvation Army. And this location, as you know, is kitty corner to Rachel's day center, the women's center, and then across the night shelter, the Rachel's night shelter. And we have already worked in, as you know, this is an old building of the Salvation Army. In fact, Salvation Army has been very cooperative. They've gone in and cleaned up. They actually used some volunteers from the Navy to come in and clean up some of the things that were stored in over there. We are also working with our team of volunteers to figure out if they can bring in some pro bono contributions to make this place much more nicer by painting and other things. One of the major things that we have worked with our own contractors, because we have found the funding to do the TIs, the major improvements would be mostly plumbing internally. Because one of the major issues, because it is a shelter, plumbing is the main issues. So we are working with the Salvation Army. As of right now, we don't see a big hurdle in it. But working in Catholic Charities, I think I still can use devil is in the details. And I think working with Salvation Army and the contractor to see what comes up in the next week or two. We don't have site control yet, but Salvation Army is the landlord. They're working expeditiously to get us some of the lease terms and contracts. So once we have site control, we are ready to go in and hopefully get this shelter up and going quickly.
Great. No, I love that answer. I'm glad to hear that everything's tracking. Again, thank you for taking the costs on and all that. Just wanted to kind of understand better about how big of a lift it was going to be before you were ready to get to work. So that is wonderful. And then one final question. The ability to serve women being discharged from hospital is really key. And I think one of the things that I know our hospital system is going to be really grateful for, I'm certainly grateful for it. It's been a changing, kind of a moving target from the policy side. How, and maybe this is still TBD, but how do you coordinate with the hospital system? Because 40 beds, you're going to be in high demand and hospital discharges happen 24/7. So what does that sort of look like?
So so are you okay if I jump in for a minute, Vino, and then I'll let you add to that. So
Absolutely.
One of the things that we're trying to do with this shelter too is there are some folks in our existing shelter system, some women that may be really struggling to be successful in our existing shelters who don't have this higher level of care. So part of what we will do is work with folks that Catholic Charities, women that Catholic Charities has already identified, plus some potential single women in some of our existing shelters who are really struggling to be successful with the resources that are there. And then we have the coordinated shelter intake process. So part of one of the conversations we had with Catholic Charities is also working with our coordinated shelter intake team to make sure that we can help balance and manage that. We do have ongoing conversations with some of the hospitals in the area. So we have some discharge work that we're doing already. And that is one of the challenges, to your point, Chairman Venuto, is that we don't have enough recuperative care resources to meet that need. So part of what we do is determine what that level of need is from the hospital and then where there's a shelter bed that might fit. And then we would help coordinate and facilitate with Vino's team. But I want to let you share, Vino.
Thank you, Lisa, and you are on the point on that. And it just happens that I've been here now for 41 months at Catholic Charities, and we have an existing relationship with Scripps Mercy Hospital, in which our team has been doing it for many years now, coordinating the discharge of those individuals who are experiencing homelessness who go in over there and are being discharged. And we work closely with Mercy Hospital to figure out how they can be placed within the community. So that's another cohort that we are already working with and figure out how it is. And the sad part is our day center and the night shelter is above the post office. So when they release for the 35 beds that we have, and they release it, some of them can't even climb up sometimes, right? Because even if they don't need acute care, they are still having some recovery issues, so they can't climb up the stairs. This would be a great blessing for those individuals, especially from Scripps or other hospitals coming in. But we will be working very closely with the Housing Commission. We'll be working together with the coordinated entry system that is already in place and ensure that it is balanced. Right now at Rachel's, we are seeing 100 to 120 women a day. Only 35 get a bed. And the rest prefer to sleep on the streets because they don't want to be near men like me, because they feel a threat when they see people like me. So when with this 40 beds, it adds on to our existing capacity too. So it allows getting more women who are in the streets onto the housing or shelter in San Diego.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for all that. This is really illuminating. Commissioners, are there any other questions? Or a motion?
No questions, but yeah, thank you for all that information, and to Lisa's team and Vino's team. And one of the things that seems kind of distinctive about this that is so encouraging is what a community effort has gone into this. From you all handling those improvements to the volunteers you're describing coming in, and Salvation Army's participation. I think this is probably one of the best examples where we're seeing like an entire village come together around making this happen, and this is such an important cohort. So no questions. That's my comment, and I would be happy to make the motion.
Fabulous. Do we have a second?
I second, but I think Rick's hands up.
Oh, thank you. Go ahead, Rick.
A couple of comments. First is a shout out to Vino Paginor. Vino was one of the first people I met when I moved to San Diego 14 years ago. He was in a different capacity then, but I think where he's landed with Catholic Charities is wonderful. I think it will fit his sense of mission and his skills and abilities very well. And Vino, it gives me great comfort seeing you there and what you're going to be able to do for the city the next few years. Appreciate your service. Secondly, this is the kind of business arrangement, if you will, that this agency does at its best. And typically where we do our best work, we get the least amount of notice and attention, because we are in what I call a wholesale relationship to the process here, with Vino being in the retail position. He's doing the direct services. We're providing funding, support, distribution, background. And in one respect, the Housing Commission are leading from behind, if you'll accept that as a concept, in this particular area is what we have developed over the years as one of our best skills and abilities. And it's where we fit into what Ryan called a good community-based approach. But absent the Housing Commission's support here, nothing else would have happened. Vino, congrats. Great to be here. Great to see you here, rather. And Madam Chair, that concludes my comments.
Thank you. We've got a motion and a second. So we'll go ahead and call the vote. Vice Chair Klumpner.
Aye, and also I see Vino's hand up in case you wanted to say something.
I can't, thank you guys. I can't see on my iPad. Vino, please. And excuse me, I'm sorry.
No, I want to thank Rick for the partnership. When I joined the nonprofit world from the for-profit world myself, Rick was my first friend here at the nonprofit world. The way that Housing Commission has done business has inspired me to come back. I left the nonprofit world, went into the for-profit world, and back here at Catholic Charities. And I agree with Rick, what he said. The people in the shadows are sometimes discounted. The Housing Commission is a perfect example of what you're doing. You support us. It's as the foundation. We are the face out there, but if the foundation is not there, we will collapse. And being here for 41 months, working with the team there at Housing Commission and Rick's leadership, that foundation that Housing Commission is creating now for Catholic Charities is going to propel us, because for 38 plus years, Catholic Charities has done the services for women in downtown San Diego. But now with this support, it's going to be a paradigm shift for how we can help those women on the street. So I want to thank Rick and the team there, the Housing Commission and the commissioners, for the vision and your leadership in doing this. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. And now I'm gonna just check to make sure there's no hands before I do anything else. Thank you, everybody. This is very positive. Well, now we're gonna call the vote. Vice Chair Klumpner.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Hester.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Hubbard.
Aye.
Thank you. And I will add my vote in favor. Thank you, everybody. Those in the shadows, those on the Zoom spotlight, very, very appreciative of all the work that you've done to get us here. Next is item 103, the amendment to the Housing Commission's agreement with Hyder Property Management. For property management services at Valley Vista Apartments, item 104, the next item, item 104, is a similar item regarding the agreement with Hyder for property management services at Kearney Vista Apartments. This morning, we will have one staff presentation for both of these items because they are so similar, and then we'll vote separately on each item. The phone line is open now for public comments about both items, 103 and 104. You can call 833-610-2513 to be placed in the queue. We did not get any written public comments submitted, but again, the number to call is 833-610-2513. And we'll take public comments for both items, again, items 103 and 104 after the staff presentation. And the staff presentation will come from Vice President of Asset Management, Emmanuel Ariano, who's going to present. Take it away.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Benvenuto, Commissioners, Mr. Gentry, and Mr. Christensen. My name is Emmanuel Arellano, Vice President of Asset Management. This morning, I'm presenting the request for approval of amendments to the agreements for property management services for Valley Vista and Kearney Vista Apartments. Next slide, please. On November 25th, 2020, the Housing Commission acquired these properties to create permanent affordable rental housing with supportive services for individuals who experienced homelessness. Valley Vista consists of 190 affordable units and 2 managers units. Kearney Vista provides 142 affordable units and 2 managers units. Next slide, please. This slide shows images of the Valley Vista apartments. Next slide, please. And this slide shows images of the Kearney Vista apartments. Next slide, please. For the initial operations at these properties, the Housing Commission contracted with experienced service providers that were identified through a competitive request for qualification solicitation. The service providers then subcontracted with other organizations to provide property management services at the properties. The service provider for Valley Vista was People Assisting the Homeless, or PATH, and the John Stewart Company provided property management. At Kearney Vista, Father Joe's Villages was a service provider, and they subcontracted with Hyder for property management services. Next slide, please. The initial funding for supportive services was available for only 1 year. The County of San Diego authorized funding for services after the first year. Operating income from the properties funds the property management services. With the new funding sources for supportive services, the Housing Commission entered into a memorandum of agreement with the county to issue a joint request for proposals for both properties. The county contracts directly with service providers for the supportive services at the properties. The Housing Commission enters into separate contracts for the property management services for both properties. Next slide, please. Hyder Property Management Professionals was the sole respondent to the request for proposals for property management services for these properties. An evaluation panel that included representatives from the Housing Commission and the county met to evaluate and rank the response based on the selection criteria. The panel rated Hyder as a qualified and responsive respondent to the request for proposals. Hyder has extensive experience managing affordable housing and permanent housing with supportive services for individuals who experienced homelessness. Hyder currently manages 124 affordable housing properties, totaling 8,167 units throughout the San Diego, Imperial County, Inland Empire, and Los Angeles regions. Next slide, please. The Housing Commission executed agreements with Hyder for property management services at both properties for a 3-month period from January 1st, 2022 through March 31st, 2022. Each of these agreements was for an amount not to exceed $250,000, which is the Housing Commission President and CEO's budget authority. This was to ensure continuity of property management services at each property. These agreements were based on anticipated costs related to the property management fee, staff salary and benefits, software, banking, and reimbursable amounts for training. The actions proposed to the board today would extend the contract term for 9 months from April 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2022, and would increase the maximum compensation for each contract to cover the costs for the extended term. For Vista, the maximum compensation amount would increase from $250,000 to $804,100. For Vista, the maximum contract amount would increase from $250,000 to $769,804. Each agreement would include a one-year option to renew at the Housing Commission's discretion. Next slide. The funding sources and uses for approval by these actions are included in the fiscal year 2022 budget, which the board and the Housing Authority previously approved. Approval of sources and uses of funds for future fiscal years will be included in the Housing Commission's budget proposed for Housing Commission Board and Housing Authority approval for that fiscal year. Next slide. For agenda item 103 regarding Vista Apartments, staff recommends that the Housing Commission Board take the actions detailed in the staff report and shown on the next two slides. Next slide. Next slide. For agenda item 104 regarding Vista Apartments, staff also recommends that the Housing Commission take the actions detailed in the staff report and shown on this and the next slide. Next slide. Next slide. This concludes my presentation. We are available to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions?
Sorry, Madam Chair, do you want to take a caller?
Oh, I do. Thank you, Scott. We'll take any callers now.
We have one caller in the queue and I'll call them.
Thank you.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Yeah, you may begin making your comments. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, is this non-agenda or can I just talk about anything I want to talk about?
This is the time for comments on the property management contracts for Kearney Vista or Valley Vista Apartments.
Okay, I was just looking at that and I'm wondering why the budget went from 250,000 to 800 some thousand. Let me tell you my situation with Hyder Property Management presently. And since I had a reporter from the Voice of San Diego, Andrew Keats, come out and he apparently found that the Housing Commission did not report debts to the city. What does that mean? What did you report and who were they? Right after he came out, I received the first of my lease violations. The second lease violation I received from Hyder Property Management, I received right after I showed her a picture of extreme black mold that's underneath my wallpaper that most people where I live are suffering with. The result of this is as a defense mechanism, your different systems swell and your brain swells up. It's like an inflammatory, and that the result of that is loss of cognitive function. That's what we're all going to leave with. I know that you had full knowledge of the hazards when we were put there. From the beginning, out of my vents came like a hairy mess, which is bugs, dust mites, and something that bites. And just last week, I was told by Hyder Property Management that they're unable to get anybody to service the HVAC units because of COVID. Everything else in the 20 or so units that you renovated was done, except they said that they couldn't get anybody to come out and service the HVAC units. That's crazy. That's where the issue. That's where a lot of the mold is coming from, and it's unbelievable. My name is Joseph Brown. My phone number is 619-327-6938. I'm at 5400 Kearney Mesa Road, Unit 322. I'm inviting anybody to come out and see me or call me, and I'll show you what's existing in my apartment. Brittany Morse, the property manager, is basically running the place. Our present provider, Telecare, is doing nothing. One of the things that really troubles me is before the first of the year, we had transportation to and from doctor, to and from stores. I didn't use that myself, but now there's none, and it was promised since the first of the year, and the result is my neighbors are not going to the doctor.
Thank you,
My
Mr.
neighbors
Brown.
are paying more.
That's the end of your 3
Paying
minutes.
more, and I'm so grateful for this home you gave me.
Thank you, sir. That concludes the callers for this item or these items.
Thank you, Scott. Commissioners, are there any other questions?
So this is obviously a subject we've been dealing with on kind of an ongoing basis here, and learning, and this population that we're serving is incredibly important, and also comes with its own set of challenges that we've discussed kind of at length. And so I really appreciate the work that staff is doing on kind of constantly reassessing the service levels and the types of service and the qualifications that we're looking for and all that. And sort of in light of that, I'm very happy with what is in front of us today. I am sort of wondering though, could we get like somewhere around maybe 6 months, just sort of like an update check-in as to how things are going at these two facilities, and just sort of it could just be an info item at some point down the road, whenever you all think it makes sense. Thank you. Yeah. I see the heads nodding. I think we're all on the same page that these are not static situations, and so just sort of like the check-in there, because we're all everybody here is very invested in the success of these two facilities. So yeah, that was my only comment.
Thank you, Vice Chair Klempner. Yeah, I am reminded to that point that we have an interesting collaboration here. I mean, the county oversees the Telecare contract. We have the property management piece. There's just a boatload happening. But again, to kind of reiterate what the Vice Chair is saying, I am happy to see this item come before us. Could you share a little bit about HIDR's previous experience with these acute populations? Is that possible?
Sure, happy to do that. So HIDR is an experienced property manager of affordable housing and permanent supported housing properties. They were currently the property manager, the property manager of the first year operations at Carno Vista. So they are familiar with the property, but they do have very vast experience with multiple, I think I mentioned over 100 properties they currently manage. They're all affordable and permanent supported housing units.
Great, thank you. And then I'm sensitive to the fact that there is, of course, probably plenty of opportunities for feedback, and I am confident that to be a successful property manager, they have institutionalized that. Could you share a little bit with us about is there like an ombudsman process? If somebody were to make a complaint, what's the course of a complaint like that?
I can start out, Emmanuel, if you're okay with it. Yeah, so, typical for any property management company is to have sort of a chain of command. And so the resident would, first start out with the manager, and if felt that the issue was not resolved, could go to the regional manager, who is the supervisor for the manager, and sort of up the chain to the head of operations. I will say with this location in permanent supportive housing in general is a very team approach. So clinicians are also involved, as well as staff with the Housing Commission. So everybody sort of like puts their arms around the situation whenever there is a concern.
Great, thank you. Just wanted to make sure everybody heard that. Thank you very much. Are there any additional questions or comments or a motion? I will go ahead and move that we support it.
A second.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Hubbard. I'm gonna check and see if there's any hands up. Nope. And we will vote separately. So this, I made the motion for item 103. Do we have and Keely, just want to make sure you're comfortable with making the motion to approve the property management for Valley Vista Apartments, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you, Commissioner Hubbard. Okay, we're going to go ahead and vote now. Vice Chair Klempner,
Aye.
Commissioner Hester,
Aye.
Commissioner Hubbard.
Aye.
Great. Commissioner Vasquez, have you joined us? Okay, so that motion carries unanimously with all 4 commissioners present voting in favor. Now, item 104, as we had mentioned, the 2 items had 1 presentation, but voting separately. So we took item 103 already. We're moving on to item 104, and that's the amendment to the Housing Commission's agreement with Hydro Property Management for property management services at Kearney Vista. Commissioners, may I take the same motion and second as item 103? That would be Commissioner Hubbard. Are you comfortable seconding again?
Yes.
Great. So when I say your name, go ahead and state your vote on the motion. Vice Chair Klempner.
Aye.
Commissioner Hester.
Aye.
Commissioner Hubbard.
Aye.
I will add my vote in favor. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 105 is an informational workshop about Housing First San Diego and the Housing Commission's Homeless Action Plan. The phone line is now open for public comments about item 105. You can call 833-610-2513 to join the queue. We had no written public comments submitted regarding this item, but again, that number is 833-610-2513, and we'll take those comments after the staff presentation. The presentation will cover Executive Vice President of Strategic Initiatives, Lisa Jones, Executive Vice President of Rental Assistance, Azucena Valladolid, and Vice President of Housing First Programs, Diana Villanueva. Whenever you're ready.
Good morning, commissioners. We'll go to the next slide, please. The San Diego Housing Commission's leadership role in collaborative efforts to address homelessness in the city of San Diego has expanded significantly in recent years, as we all know. The Housing Commission's involvement in this area began in earnest in 2010. That's when the Housing Commission became one of the initial housing authorities in the nation to receive approval from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to use rental housing voucher funding to provide long-term housing for San Diegans experiencing chronic homelessness. The Housing Commission also began administering the city's homeless shelters and services programs in 2010. After those initial years, Mr. Gentry in 2014, with the support of the Board of Commissioners, directed the development of the Housing Commission's Homelessness Action Plan, known as Housing First San Diego. Housing First San Diego launched November 12th, 2014. Next slide. Housing First San Diego is a collaboration across divisions. In fact, we could have many representatives here speaking with Azucena and Diana and I today. It really looks at how divisions work together across our agency, how we design a broad spectrum of initiatives to create housing solutions in our community. These initiatives fit into 3 major functions: direct client services programs. Our Homeless Housing Innovations Operations Department operates 10 programs that directly assist individuals and families with a wide range of services and financial assistance needs. Development funds with housing vouchers. Our Real Estate Finance Division awards development funds coupled with our Rental Assistance Division's federal housing vouchers for the creation, rehabilitation, or acquisition of permanent supportive housing for individuals and families with very high service needs and ongoing financial assistance, and special program housing vouchers. Our Rental Assistance Division administers special program housing vouchers and housing assistance programs that provide ongoing rental assistance and wraparound services in collaboration with community-level nonprofits and agencies for a variety of special populations. As this slide demonstrates, Housing First San Diego pulls together efforts and resources across our Homeless Housing Innovations, Real Estate Finance, and Rental Assistance divisions, with support from additional departments throughout the agency to implement initiatives that support some of our most vulnerable community members. Housing First San Diego is a dynamic plan. The Housing Commission evaluates and identifies needs and adds initiatives accordingly to strengthen the spectrum of resources Housing First San Diego provides. Housing First San Diego also depends on collaboration between the Housing Commission, the City of San Diego and their Homeless Strategies and Solutions Department, service providers, developers, and landlords. Housing Commission funds and federal and city funding that the Housing Commission administers support the Housing First San Diego initiatives. All of the programs follow the Housing First model, which focuses on providing appropriate housing options to meet a household's individualized needs quickly with as few requirements or conditions as possible, and access to supportive services as needed. Next slide. All Housing First San Diego initiatives create housing solutions for people who are experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness as defined on this slide. Whereas some households may only need stabilization services to maintain their housing that's at risk and short-term rental assistance, another household experiencing homelessness may need more intensive case management, supports in accessing public benefits, increasing earned income, and longer-term rental assistance ranging from 12 to 24 months. Others with higher needs, such as long-term homelessness, physical disabilities, or behavioral health challenges, may require ongoing subsidy with intensive wraparound services through permanent supportive housing. A key component of Housing First San Diego is to build out a spectrum of interventions to meet a variety of needs. This promotes a person-centered approach to providing services and financial assistance. SDHC and our service provider partners collaborate with community-level agencies, including the coordinated entry system, to receive referrals for people seeking assistance and match the appropriate level of intervention to their level of need. Next slide.
Through providing direct client services, awarding development funds coupled with vouchers, and committing special program vouchers to addressing homelessness, Housing First San Diego has created 10,226 housing solutions for individuals and families experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness since it launched in 2014. This number is deduplicated, so it represents each unique housing solution created through Housing First San Diego initiatives. Next slide, please. One of Housing First San Diego's major functions is operating direct client services programs. These programs include teams of housing specialists who work directly with people at risk of experiencing homelessness to help them resolve their current housing crisis. Homelessness poses complex challenges for which simple or one-size-fits-all solutions are not sufficient. Our broad spectrum of initiatives can be visualized as starting from a low level of need to a moderate level to an intensive level of need for services, financial assistance, and rental assistance. For example, homelessness prevention programs help households remain in their homes and avoid becoming homeless. For households that are new to homelessness and who have not yet entered the shelter system, diversion programs help families identify necessary support and alternative housing options. This includes the Housing Commission's collaboration with the Downtown San Diego Partnership for the Family Reunification Program, which reconnects individuals and families with family or other support systems through relocation assistance and follow-up services. Flexible spending and shallow subsidy programs provide financial assistance to help residents in the city's shelters to move into permanent housing and maintain housing stability. And the Housing Commission's Moving Home Rapid Rehousing Program helps individuals and families experiencing homelessness to quickly obtain and maintain permanent housing through wraparound services, financial assistance, and rental assistance. Individuals and families experiencing homelessness can receive help from any of these programs based on which is the most appropriate to best meet their housing stabilization needs. Connections to landlords throughout the city of San Diego are important to locating permanent housing for San Diegans experiencing homelessness. The Landlord Engagement and Assistance Program, or LEAP, assists households that may be participating in any of these programs discussed on this slide, as well as supporting partner service providers with creating housing solutions for their customers. Over the years, we have seen that people's housing crises can be resolved by accessing an intervention along the spectrum. However, as mentioned, we continue to evaluate the needs of the community and the interventions we have available to ensure we are meeting the needs. Next slide, please. All of the direct services programs of Housing First San Diego include core services that are tailored for each participant. The core components include case management and wraparound support services, financial assistance such as one-time move-in costs, and monthly rental assistance. Next slide, please. The Landlord Engagement and Assistance Program, or LEAP, discussed briefly a few moments ago, serves as the connection point between landlords with available units and people experiencing homelessness. LEAP includes a team of dedicated housing specialists at the Housing Commission who work to secure housing opportunities in the competitive rental housing market in the city of San Diego. These housing specialists understand the unique needs of people experiencing homelessness, establish relationships with service providers and landlords, and can specifically address how landlords can successfully collaborate with the Housing Commission and service providers through LEAP. In addition to providing services to our Housing for San Diego programs, LEAP also collaborates with more than 25 service providers in the community to connect their households experiencing homelessness to landlords. LEAP also provides benefits and incentives for landlords to remove immediate barriers to housing for our clients, as shown on this slide. Next slide, please.
Another main category of Housing for San Diego initiatives is the creation of new permanent supportive housing with development funds and rental housing vouchers. Through Housing for San Diego, the Housing Commission awards development funds and vouchers to specific developments, such as the recently completed St. Theresa of Calcutta Villa Apartments in East Village, which includes 270 permanent supportive housing units. The Housing Commission's support for this development included awarding 270 vouchers and an $11.5 million loan. The Housing Commission also authorized the issuance of approximately $115 million in multi-family housing revenue bonds to support this development by Father Joe's Villages and Chelsea Investment Corporation. In addition, the Housing Commission invests in the rehabilitation of existing properties such as the historic Hotel Churchill. The Housing Commission's award-winning rehabilitation of Hotel Churchill created 72 permanent supportive housing units, predominantly for veterans. The Housing Commission also acquires properties to create permanent supportive housing, such as Quality Inn, West Park Inn, and Village North Senior Garden Apartments, all of which were acquired as part of Housing for San Diego. Combined, these three properties provide more than 180 permanent supportive housing units today. Permanent supportive housing provides ongoing rental assistance with intensive supportive services for people experiencing homelessness who have a high level of need. The investment of development funds and housing vouchers frequently requires a combination of Housing for San Diego program types to support these housing solutions and collaboration among departments throughout the Housing Commission, as well as developers and service providers in the community. Next slide, please. The significant impact of projects like these is seen in the stories of the people who now have a place to call home. Joseph shared his story at the grand opening of St. Theresa of Calcutta Villa. We'd like to share a short video with you about his story now.
Of loved ones we were faced with very real. My daughter Abigail and I are not unique. Like many others, the last 24 months have been challenging. Like many others, we have experienced loss. Last spring, while adapting to these pandemic-related challenges and loss of loved ones, we were faced with very real and very personal housing crisis when given our rental property's intent to sell and a 45-day notice to vacate. Having a single fixed income and San Diego's average 2-bedroom apartment rate of around, $3,700, and even then a limited housing supply, after 6 weeks of diligent effort, Abigail and I were homeless. After 3 months rotating between motels and our Toyota's air mattress, we learned about Father Joe's Villages and St. Theresa of Calcutta Villa from 2 wonderful women. Monica at Monarch School for San Diego students impacted by homelessness, and Sharon Ferguson at Path San Diego, a frequent partner with Father Joe serving the needs of San Diego's downtown homeless population. After applying, I received the call that Abigail and I had been accepted into a 2-bedroom apartment at St. Theresa of Calcutta Villa. Proudly, I was able to give my daughter a Christmas gift like no other, a home, a permanent home. We moved into our home last month. Even though our Toyota brought us together literally and figuratively, Abigail and myself are both excited to have our own room, hers in pink and mine not in pink. You have allowed me to use this moment to be an inspiration to my daughter and also an example of success, offering tangible results to those that support Father Joe's efforts to change the endings of others and to make St. Theresa of Calcutta Villa San Diego's new community of hope.
Next slide, please. The next major category of Housing First San Diego initiatives is special program housing vouchers. Through the Rental Assistance Division, the Housing Commission has committed housing vouchers to programs that support housing solutions for specific population groups experiencing homelessness. These include the Monarch School Project, which serves families experiencing homelessness with children who attend the Monarch School. The Guardian Scholars Program, through which the San Diego Housing Commission collaborates with San Diego State University to provide rental assistance for students who have experienced homelessness or are at risk of homelessness. And San Diego Housing Commission's Moving On Rental Assistance Program, a Housing Commission partnership with the County of San Diego Behavioral Health Services Division. This program provides rental assistance for individuals who are ready to transition out of permanent supportive housing, but still need rental assistance. Special programs also include mainstream vouchers from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, which help families that include a non-elderly person with a disability between the ages of 18 and 61. HUD emergency housing vouchers, which those who are experiencing homelessness are at risk of experiencing homelessness, are fleeing domestic violence, human trafficking, and other types of violence, or who recently experienced homelessness and for whom rental assistance will help prevent their homelessness. And Veteran Affairs Supportive Housing, or VASH vouchers, which provide permanent supportive housing for veterans with supportive services provided by the Department of Veteran Affairs San Diego Healthcare System. Next slide, please. Landlords are essential partners for these types of housing voucher programs to address homelessness, as well as the Housing Commission's ongoing rental assistance programs for families with low income. Based on the success of LEAP, the Housing Commission created a similar initiative specifically to help attract and retain landlords for Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher rental assistance households. The Landlord Partnership Program, or LPP, also provides financial and support incentives to landlords who rent to Housing Choice Voucher households, as shown on this slide. Housing Commission staff are also designated to work with landlords and tenants through this program, including landlord liaisons and mobility counselors. The Housing Commission's Landlord Services Unit also conducts monthly seminars for landlords interested in learning more about the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher program. Joe Bino is one of the landlords who participates in our program by renting to Housing Choice Voucher households. We have a short video for you of him talking about his experience with the program.
I've had friends and colleagues in the field that own properties, and it's been really great for them. And I thought, hey, let me, since I'm also in real estate, let me give it a shot. Just working with Section 8, it's very streamlined. Receiving payments every month for rents due is just, it's pretty much on autopilot. I don't have any concern with, the rents being, paid and stuff like that. So it's a great program. It was easy to get on board initially, the onboarding process, and it was pretty painless. It's just, giving them, your banking information and finding, signing some few forms and stuff like that. It wasn't time consuming. I really feel good about it because I'm able to serve and provide housing for folks that need it and that are on Section 8. I don't steer away from it, of course, or anything like that. If somebody's on Section 8, I don't see any negativity about it. Again, to me, it's a positive because, again, working with Section 8 is very pleasant. The tenants are very respectful. They understand the program. So I think it's just a win-win for everybody. It's a win-win for the tenant, for Section 8, the landlord. Just overall, it's been a great experience for me. My thoughts about the San Diego Housing Commission is great because just the experience I've had with them in over a year now, a year and a half, has been all good. Even during COVID, the San Diego Housing Commission was really responsive because I don't know if it was, a lot of, government entities and private entities had limited staff. So even during that time, I got really good response from them. good interaction, good response, not like waiting a week later. It would either be the day of or the following business day, I would get the response or answers I wanted, anything I was emailing to them. Just the whole process was really great. And again, that's why I pursued the San Diego Housing Commission after I got my place renovated and got them, up to good living standards, reaching out to them and trying to get, San Diego Housing Commission tenants back into my place.
Thank you. That concludes our presentation. We are available for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Do we have any public, do we have any callers?
No, we don't have any callers for this item. Thank you.
Excellent. Commissioners, questions, comments? Wait, I saw Mr. Gentry come off mute and there we go. Mr. Gentry, would you like to speak?
I'll wait to see if there are any commissioner comments first.
Okay, great. I recall when this first came before us, I mean, this was a huge pickup. There's committees that oversee different pieces and the execution and keeping track of it. There was no, somebody had alluded to like a very many page color coded Excel sheet where everybody had a different job between the city and the regional task force and the commission. Curious about how all that coordination is going now and how, because I'm confident it's occurred, if you could tell us about times when, or how you're approaching moments where you go, let's tack this way versus this way, because we are learning as we go. And I'm not sure who might be appropriate to answer that.
Maybe Lisa.
Okay, in the hot seat. So what has happened over time, and I think that this is really impactful, is we had this Housing for San Diego Homelessness Action Plan that started in 2014, where we were, to some degree, I think to your point, learning as we go, and housing our heroes was one of those learning, sort of pinch points where we were creating this resource and people weren't connecting, and that's where landlord engagement really came in to bridge that gap, helping people find units. But as we've moved forward over the years, we now also have the Community Action Plan on Homelessness for the City of San Diego. So we have our action plan that's about how do we gather our resources and leverage city, state, federal, and commission resources to build out our efforts between real estate development finance, special program vouchers, and then direct services in Deanna's shop. But that then now is coupled with a framework that tells us what our goalposts are, right? So the Community Action Plan has actually given us those goals, those short-term 3-year goals, those 10-year goals. In fact, one of the goals from the Community Action Plan is around permanent supportive housing units. And within 4 years, 60% of the units that were supposed to be built in 10 years really needed to be up and running in 4. We're at about 2.5 years right now, and we're 89% towards that 60% goal. So we're actually ahead of schedule. I'm hesitant to get too excited about that. I think that's fantastic. I think really the Housing First San Diego action plan around real estate finance and development, gap financing and vouchers has made that happen. But at the same time, we know that COVID has changed our system a lot, right? So the conversation around when we relook at those numbers and maybe do some recalculation around that, I think is important. But to your point, the Community Action Plan pulled together the milestones and the framework, and then Housing for San Diego helps activate and action those goals. And the Community Action Plan has a leadership council, which Rick chairs, and which includes Nathan Fletcher, Mayor Todd Gloria, Tamara Kohler from the Regional Task Force, person with lived experience, several business representatives, Mitch Mitchell, our commissioner. So we really have that collaboration and alignment happening so that we do actually keep rowing in the same direction.
Thank you. Yes, and thank you for clarifying the Housing First versus the community plan there. But that makes a boatload of sense. And kudos to the commission for putting the foundational blocks there so that the community plan could be a functioning document. Commissioners, any other questions or comments? It's incredible what you guys have done. I actually heard from a number of people who met the gentleman and his daughter at the Theresa of Calcutta event that it was just really moving, and I can see why. So
Yes, I do want to second that. I love it. And I think putting in that video, both videos, but especially the video with the gentleman and his daughter was very touching, moving, and I mean, that's what this is about. So very, very good. I loved it.
Thank you, Commissioner Howard. Anything else, or will we? Okay, Mr. Gentry.
This report was coincidental with my announcing I'm leaving. It really was, but I think it's timely and it's appropriate. And just a little bit of background and a couple of comments. We got into this arena in steps. Initially, when Jerry Sanders asked me for the Housing Commission to begin administering what was then the winter shelter back in 2010, which after one rocky year became a pretty smooth operation. Followed in 2012 by the Downtown San Diego Partnership, asking us to sponsor a program that they do to help people reconnect with loved ones back home, wherever that might be, a program designed by Jennifer Lassard. That's worked very well. And that led me to believe, after some talks with HUD folks in 2014, that we needed to design our own approach. So I charged Jeff Davis and with our senior staff then to come up with a series of programs to help us get 1,500 people off the streets in 3 years. We actually got just a few short of 3,000 in that time period. And since then, since about 2016, we've continued to update this Housing First San Diego approach every year. And we've learned as we've gone. The issue, Stephanie, that you were talking about working with landlords came out of our experience with Housing Our Heroes in 2016, where we said we're going to house 1,000 vets in a year. And 3 months into the program, nothing had happened. And it wasn't because we didn't have the need. It wasn't because we didn't have the funding. We had the vouchers. It was because we didn't have the landlords. So we figured out that we needed to do a better job connecting. And we've done that. And I think every step of the way, as we have progressed, as we've grown, as we've expanded, whether we've done the direct retail work ourselves, like those hotels, or whether we've done it indirectly through other organizations like Catholic Charities or Father Joe's or some other entity, we've accepted the fact that we're moving into an arena where we will learn, we'll grow. If a stumble occurs, we'll pick up and not do it twice. So I think that the fact that we've hit 10,000 in the month that I'm leaving here gives me a lot of satisfaction. And I think it also serves to indicate that we have redefined who and what this agency is. And I guarantee you there is no other housing agency in this country, anywhere, who has moved into this arena like we have, or who has proportionately, in comparison with the population of the city, done as much or more than we have, or has had a greater level of success. Now, have we solved the homelessness problem? Oh, Lord, no. Is it getting worse? Likely. Would it be even worse than that had we not gotten involved in this years ago? I think so. So I think what this whole set of programs shows is what a local agency can do if it has the will, if the local leadership, including both this board and the city council and the mayors, agree with it. And if we then put our resources together with our ambitions to make something real happen. And I think that's the genius of this agency, if you will. And I think as you all look to redefine what we do going forward, I think it'd be good to recognize just what a gem there is here, what we've done in the past, and to build on that going forward. And this agency will continue to be a success years in the future. I'm only too happy to have been here during part of it. And I wish you all great luck, great success, and great good fortune going forward. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Gentry. Wonderful closing comments. Is there anything that anybody else would like to add?
Madam Chair, we do have one caller in the queue. It appears to be in Mr. Brown again. Would you like me to go ahead and answer that?
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Brown, you may make comments. Mr. Brown?
I'm not sure what the agenda item is that I'm speaking of.
This is the agenda item regarding the Housing First San Diego Homelessness Action Plan, if you have comments on that.
Yeah, I also have comments about the harm reduction program that we're running a harm reduction model, which says that you stay in your home and do your drugs, which would be bad enough, but the property that we were put in, everybody knows what was there. I invite anybody to look at the Kearney Mesa development plan. Just the first 2 pages tell you what was dumped in landfill south from 1959 to 1974.
Unfortunately, Mr. Brown, that's not on the topic that we have before us. I'm going to ask you to bring it back to the Homeless Action Plan or connect you with staff to follow up after.
Connect me with staff.
Okay, great. Scott, can we make sure that?
Yes.
Excellent.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
Madam
Okay.
Madam Chair, I suspect that comment reflects some of the continuing issues that will be confronting you and your leadership here.
I see a twinkle in your eye, Mr. Gentry. Thank you for that comment. I think it probably does reflect some of what we, Keely, some of what we're going to continue to address. And the poker faces on you guys are terrible. All right, everybody. Final comments, going once, going twice. Okay. Thank you, everybody. That concludes the board's special meeting today. A round of applause for Mr. Gentry. We will see you, I'm sure, around town. And our meeting is adjourned at 10:40 a.m. Thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. Bye.